Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be doing a little tutorial on how to create a coloring book in Affinity Publisher using stock vector artwork. This is something you can do just for yourself as a gift, and of course my personal favorite, as a book that you can upload to the Kindle Direct Publishing platform and sell on Amazon. If you're new around here, my name's Rachel Harrison-Sund, and I help people to create journals, planners, notebooks, and more, and then sell them on the Kindle Direct Publishing platform. If that sounds interesting to you, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when I put these videos out every Monday. All right, so Affinity Publisher is actually a desktop publishing software. Now that suite does have a dedicated vector editing program. It's called Affinity Designer, but if you don't want to fork out for that extra program, Affinity Publisher has more than enough vector editing capability within it so that you can create this project just in that one simple program. Now, if you do have Designer, then I recommend you check out this video here, which I basically go through this entire project in that specific program. And if you don't have any of these paid vector editing programs, then you can check out this video here where I show you how to do it in the free version of a program called Gravit. Okay, for things you'll need, obviously you're going to need a version of Affinity Publisher, and you're going to need some high quality stock vector artwork. Now, I personally recommend heading over to Creative Fabrica for that artwork. They've got a huge selection of really awesome high quality artwork, and in my opinion, they have got the best license for low content books. So if you plan on creating a book that you plan to sell commercially, this is the place to go because they've got a great print on demand license that will cover you. Now, a note on if you plan on getting any stock imagery from any other stock imagery websites, make sure you thoroughly read and understand the license. There is a lot of variation in what you'll find in these licenses. And this especially goes if you plan on selling these books commercially. Some will, some won't allow you to sell it commercially. Some will or won't allow you to make modifications to the artwork. Some of them, if they do allow you to sell them commercially, you are limited to how many copies that you can sell. So just make sure wherever it is you're getting this artwork from, look at the license, read it, understand it. If there's anything that you don't understand, then you can just contact that website on their help feature and ask your question and get that answered for you. This is something you really don't want to screw up. So just be aware of the license requirements. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. All right, here we are over at Creative Fabrica. So first we're going to head over to graphics. Now I just want to quickly point out, Creative Fabrica does actually sell full templates for coloring books for both adults and children. You can see they're quite high quality. Now I think templates can be a really great place to start, but if you want to make sure that nobody else out there is going to publish the exact same coloring book as you, I personally think it's a great idea to create something that is completely unique. So that is what we are going to be focusing on right now. So, but again, this is an option if you want to browse them. Again, we're going to go back up to graphics and then to illustrations. So you can either do it this way and just kind of browse their entire collection, and there is a lot, but this might be a good way to come up with some ideas. If you already have an idea for a theme, you can just go ahead and type it in the search bar. We'll just try animals, and then you're going to want to go to the menu on the left here and just add a few filters. So first, you'll choose graphics, we'll choose illustrations, and then you can also choose print on demand. So that's going to narrow things down a bit. And there's a few things that I want you to look for here when you're deciding on a graphic to choose. Firstly, we want to keep it simple. You're looking for illustrations that have solid colors, solid shapes. You know, they don't use any gradients or shading or things like that. If you're a little bit more advanced, you can go ahead and run with something a little bit more complex. If you're just starting out, really just focus on finding simple shapes that have a solid fill and a solid outline to work with. So I've already gone ahead and chosen what I'm going to be using here. It's this cute little baby animals clip art. Now, sometimes you can find files where it's just, one illustration per file. If you choose something like this, where there are multiple, you might only have to download one file, which would be great because then all of your illustrations are going to be cohesive in design. If you're choosing multiple files because you're trying to create, say, a 30-page coloring book and you can't find files that have 30 different illustrations in one file, then you're going to have to start mixing and matching. So just keep in mind, if you're downloading multiple files to try and make one coloring book, keep in mind that you want the illustrations to look cohesive. You want them to work well together. One way you can do that is you can just find the artist that created the particular graphic. Okay, so right here we've got digital papers. You could just click to view the profile, and a lot of times, an artist will have a very unique style, and you'll be able to go ahead and browse other illustrations in other files. You'll be able to go ahead and browse other files with other illustrations that will match the one that you're working on here. So keep that in mind. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is you need to download a file that has, it'll say either EPS, vector, or SVG. That's what you need. If you click into the file and you see just PNG or just JPEG, that is not going to work. You need to download a vector file. So it may or may not say the word vector. It'll either say vector, EPS, or SVG. Those are the three things you're looking for there. So we can see here we've got an EPS vector file. So that is perfect. That's exactly what we need. The other thing you really want to make sure you're looking at is, do you have a full commercial and full print on demand usage allowed? So I'm not going to go into all of that right here. I did another video all about the Creative Fabrica license, which you can check out. But whatever image you're using, you really want to read that license well, make sure you understand it, because they are all different. All right, once you've gone ahead and downloaded your art, you can just find it in your downloads folder. Now this one, you can see it came with EPS, JPEG, and PNG. Like I said, we're going to go into the EPS. And I'm just going to right click on that, and I'm going to open that with Affinity Publisher. Now, if you want, you can open up Affinity Publisher first, and then you can simply go to File and Place to place that file. Now, opening it up the way that I just did, it's just kind of open it up to the size of whatever that file was. So we want to make sure that we've got the right file size here. So we're going to go up to File and Document Setup. I'm going to change this to inches. Make sure the DPI is at 300. And I'm going to choose CMYK for the color. And I'm going to leave the color profile at US Web Coded. I'm not going to choose a bleed for this because I'm not going to have any design elements that are running off the edge of the page. And for layout, I'm not going to check facing pages. You could if you wanted to, but it's best for when we're exporting to just leave this as is. So I'll go ahead and click OK. Then I'll go back to File and set up my spread. So I want the spread set up for all spreads. And for margins, I'm going to do a 1-inch margin. And if this chain link here is connected, then you just have to enter it once. When you hit enter, all of the other three margins will do the same thing. If you wanted, for whatever reason, to set up different size margins on each side, then you could just unclick that. Scaling we're not worried about. And dimensions, we're going to leave this as print. And the page preset, I'm going to choose letter. That's 8.5 by 11. You could also do something custom like 8 by 10. That's another popular size for books like this, but I'm just going to leave it at letter. And then I'll hit OK. Now you can see here that my illustration has kind of sort of disappeared, so I'm just going to drag that over. I'm also going to make that smaller. So I'm just grabbing it with the corner here, and I'm just going to shrink that. And then I'm just going to zoom in. So the shortcut for zoom is Z. And there we go. So we're going to just fill out the number of pages. If you know that your coloring book is going to have 30 pages, you can go ahead and just change that to 30. I'm just going to keep it at 1 for now, and I'm going to insert it after the first page, and I'll hit OK. So now I'll go back to the first page. I'm just going to choose this little kitty. I'm going to do a little cut and paste. So you can either go up to Edit and do Cut, or if you're on a Mac, you can just do the shortcut Command X. If you're on a PC, I believe that is Control X. If I'm wrong about that, somebody please let me know. All right, and then I'm just going to paste. So on a Mac, that's going to be Command V. And on a PC, like I said, I believe that is going to be Control V. Now, obviously, we want to scale this up a bit. So I'm just going to grab the edge here, and I'm just going to pull that while I've got Shift held, and that's just going to constrain the proportions. And I'm going to make that as big as I want it. So I think that is probably about good. Something like that. And there we go. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I've got this move tool selected, which I already did. And now we're just going to systematically go through and we're going to remove the color fill from all of the elements of this illustration. You can see this illustration is made up of smaller elements. We're going to remove the fill or make the fill white. And I'll explain when is the best time to do that in a second here. And we're also going to give each shape a black outline. All right, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And first I'm going to select the head. It's best to start with the bigger main elements and then just kind of work your way in descending order. So I'm going to go to the color palette over here, and I'm just going to get rid of this fill. So there's a little circle with a strike through. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to select the stroke, and I'm going to make that black. So there's a little black button here. Now I can see it's made it kind of a rich black. So I just want a full 100% K black. Okay, so when you choose black, what you can do is you can either go to swatches and just click on the black, or you can just use these sliders. So basically the C, M, Y need to be at 0 and the K needs to be at 100. So you can see what that looks like. Now, obviously that line is way too thin. So let's go ahead into the stroke panel and we're going to adjust that. We're just going to keep sliding this until we like what we see. So why don't we start off with something like maybe a 5-point stroke here. We can always adjust that later if we want to. All right, next I'm just going to go ahead and do these ears. Now you can do multiple shapes at once. It's easiest to do that if they are both the same color. Now for this, rather than just get rid of the fill entirely, I'm going to create a white fill. And the reason is because if I just get rid of the fill entirely, you're going to see the stroke behind it, which we don't want. So anything that sits behind, you can just turn the fill off. Anything that sits in front, you're going to want to give it a white fill so that it doesn't reveal any of the strokes underneath. So again, you can just head over to the swatch palette and choose white. And then we're going to choose the stroke and choose black again. Then we're going to go ahead and make that a 5-point stroke. All right, and we're just going to keep on going down the line here. So we'll give that a white fill and a black stroke. Now, you don't always have to do the slider. If you want, you can just go ahead and type that in there. All right, move on to the eyes. So for this, I think we can just turn the fill right off. And again, I'm going to choose a black stroke and make it 5 points. All right, let's deal with these stripes. Should be able to just deal with these all at once. So again, for these, I think we can just get rid of the fill. Now for some of these, you might want to consider for the more of the detail lines, you might want to give it a thinner stroke just so that it sits back a little bit. That's just kind of a personal preference, but you can play around to see if it looks better. I kind of like that a little bit better, so it's not quite as intense. And when this is done, we'll kind of take an overall look and see if we want to make any some adjustments. All right, we'll move on to the body, and now, I don't know why I didn't see this before, but clearly you can see the body behind this head. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to that head element, and I'm going to give that a fill. So I'll just go ahead and give that a white fill, and now we can't see any of the body underneath. All right, so again, let's go ahead and just choose some similar elements here and do those all at once. So we'll go ahead and give that a white fill and black outline. And now we're down to some of the final details. Now this little piece here, this I don't feel like it's actually doing anything for us, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that piece entirely. I don't think it's going to be missed. And got this tail piece. And we've got our little feet, little toe pieces here. So we'll go ahead and do all of those at once. Now these are just, they don't actually have a stroke. They're just simply a shape with a fill only. So we don't need to worry about a stroke for this one. We'll just make those fills black. Okay, so now we're just going to take a look and see if any adjustments need to be made. Sometimes you're going to get some weird little areas, and I can already see there's a few here. So let's go ahead and zoom in to the ears and see what adjustments we can make. So I don't like how this kind of isn't perfectly lined up here. So what you can do is actually just manipulate these shapes. The way you're going to do that is by going over here and selecting the node tool. And that is going to allow you to select individual nodes, which are these little squares, and move them around. So you'll just click on the node that you want to move, and you can either move the node kind of that way by dragging it around, or you can grab the handle of the node and that will adjust the curvature of the shape. So I'm just going to grab this node, move it up slightly like that, and then I'm going to grab the handle and just make sure that the curve isn't interrupted. And I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm just going to move that up slightly. And I can zoom out. Okay, then I can zoom out and just see if I like that. And that does look better to me. And same thing on the other side here. All right, so that looks a little bit better to me. All right, now looking at these stripes, or whatever you want to call them, down here, we had made those a different weight up here. So we want to make sure that we're being consistent. Let's just check the weight of those. So those were 3. So I'm going to go ahead and select these and make those 3 as well. There might be a couple of other areas where you want the lines to sit back a little bit more. So you can kind of just play around with that if you want. Going back to the stripe. This, I don't like how this is kind of just touching here. I'm going to move that down. So I'm just actually using my arrow keys right now. And you can zoom in, make sure nothing weird's going on, which I see there is kind of something a little bit weird going on here. Okay, that's that. This is kind of bugging me down here, so I'm just going to grab this and move that and give it a little bit more of a pleasing shape. Now you can fine tune this obviously as much as you want. And once you're done, you're done. You've got your first illustration here. Now, depending on what type of book you're working on, if you want, you can add some text. So let's go ahead and choose the text key here. And let's create a text box and let's give it the very exciting title of Cat. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a different font for that. Let's just see what we've got here. And obviously make sure you're picking a font that actually complements the illustration style that you're working with. Let's see. Let's go with Quicksand. All right, so I'm just gonna, I just dragged the corner of the text box here to make it the same size. And now what I'm gonna do is just drag that corner. There we go. I'm just gonna make that text box the same size as the word. And maybe we'll do a dash. And you can just drag that around, and once you see that vertical line, that's telling you that it's right in the middle. Okay, so you can either drag the text box around until you see this green vertical line. That's showing you that the text box is in the middle. Or you can go up to these alignment tools up here and choose Align Horizontally. And you can choose to align it to the margin or to the spread. All right, then we can just kind of drag this around and make sure you've got it in the exact place that you want it. That is now centered, it's within the margins. If you want to show margins, just go up to View and click Show Margins. Okay, I'm just realizing that my margins weren't set up properly, so I'm just going to quickly go back here just so that you can see what the margins actually look like. I'm going to go to Spread Setup, and I think my mistake was that I didn't click Include Margins. So we're going to go ahead, and I've just given each side a 1-inch margin. There we go. Now we can see our 1-inch margin. So that actually looks a little bit too big for me, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 0.7, 3/4 inch margin basically. And there we go, that looks a bit better. So now I can just make sure that my artwork fits properly, which it does. The other thing you're probably going to want to do is also, when you've got all of your elements selected, just click on Group. That way, when you're dragging something around, you're not going to leave elements behind. If you need to ungroup it, again, you can. Just give it a right click and hit ungroup, and that's what you can do. All right, so I'm going to drag my cat text to where I want it. Again, make sure that is perfectly centered. So I'll just go to this alignment tool here and pick Align Horizontally. And again, you can play around with the stroke weights if you want. You can just go ahead and slide the lines either way, and you can see how that gets adjusted here. So you might want something a little bit more along those lines. Now, you can see here that the eyes have been given a stroke too, which isn't really necessary. And same with this stuff. So just keep in mind, what I just did now is I just selected all of the elements. So now it's even given some of the shapes that were just fills before, they also have strokes now as well. So you might want to go and you might have to do some adjustments after the fact. That's totally fine. So these whiskers, I did not want to stroke there. And the toes here. All right, so once you are happy with it, it is time to move on to the next illustration. All right, I'm just going to go into preview mode here so that we can no longer see the margins. That is our first page. So now you can go ahead, if you haven't already, you can go up to the Pages palette. You can click on this Add Page. And we'll go back to our first page here, and we'll choose our next animal. So again, you're just going to want to either go to Edit, Cut, or you can do Command X or Control X, depending on what system you're on. And then we can just either go edit paste or command paste or control paste. And we'll just go over the entire process all over again. Now we're not going to do that right now because otherwise we would be here all day and all night. Once you've got all of your pages finished, you will simply go up to this first page and remove it. You can either just delete the page. So you can either just right click on the page in the pages palette here and press delete. Or if you wanted to do something like a title page, you can leave it. And we'll just get rid of this for a second here. If you wanted to go ahead and give yourself a title page, again, you could totally do that. Now, you are clearly going to want to call yours something a little bit more exciting than coloring book. And we can turn on our margins again just by doing Shift W. Whoops. Click out of your text box before doing that. All right, I'm going back into my margins here because I must have put include margins and I didn't put all spreads. So when you're doing your margins, make sure you hit all spreads. All right, third time's a charm. Okay, there we go. There are my margins. So if you want, you can take it all the way to the edge. Put that wherever you want. Obviously, if you wanted to do a copyright page or anything like that, you can do that. Now, when you are finally finished, it's time to export. So you're going to go to File, Export. Make sure you're in PDF and you want either PDF for print or you can choose something like PDF X1A. For the purposes of this, we're just going to keep it at PDF for print. We want to make sure that we've got 300 DPI. We don't have a bleed, so we don't need to worry about that. And I'm just going to click Preview Export when complete so that we can take a look. And we want all pages. And then we're going to hit Export. Give it a name. All right, there we go. So this would be the interior of our coloring book. We've got our nice little title page there and our first page. Okay, so for the cover for this coloring book, we are going to have to create a completely separate file. So I've actually covered that in another video all about how to create a book cover in Affinity Publisher. I have linked to that in the description below, so you can go ahead and check out that video on how to create a cover that you can then use for this coloring book. Now, if you have followed along in a different program other to Affinity Publisher and you're looking for a free option, you can check out my other video, how to create a book cover in under 10 minutes using Canva. That's a program I would really recommend for your covers if you're not using Affinity Publisher. All right, you are now all set to go ahead and create your very own coloring book in Affinity Publisher. Now, if this whole low content book publishing thing is totally brand new to you, then I recommend downloading my free guide that I've left a link to down in the description below. It's called 3 Steps to Publishing Your First Low Content Book in Less Than a Day. And if you'd like a little bit of extra support, then I highly recommend you join me over in my free Facebook group, Low Content Profits. You can check out these videos next if you want to take a look at my other coloring book how-to video tutorials. And if you like this video, please hit the like button. And again, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching.